I was a huge fan of Young Justice Season 1 and Season 2. When they finally released Season 3, I was so excited to get more of Young Justice because the show was that good. Instead of building more on the characters that the previous seasons revolved around, or building more on the characters that they introduced in Season 2 and had room to build more off of, such as Static, they decided to instead focus on some completely brand new characters, which is not inherently a bad thing. It could be a very good thing if they have cool stories to tell with these new characters. One of the new characters they introduced is this girl, Halo. At first, I liked this character because she had a very fun personality. But the longer I watched the show, the more it was clear to me. This character is presenting as a hijab-wearing Muslim girl. Check. She's a brown-skinned Arab. Check. She claims to be non-binary. Check. She enters a romantic subplot which is completely against Islam. Check. She claims to be not Muslim, but also wants to wear hijab and look like a Muslim because she wants to. Check. It became clear to me that this character only existed just to check off as many boxes as possible. This is one of the many problems I see with Muslim characters when it comes to DEI representation in media. But does this problem also exist in video games? Salam, my name is Mustafa. I am the solo developer of Suburb Path. I've worked in the AAA industry doing administrative work. I've also worked in a large studio doing QA work. Currently, I do independent games. I have one game that's on Steam. I also have another game that's currently in development. Lady Decade recently did a video on the representation of Islam in games, as well as feminists' reaction to learning about Islam. She argues that the Geena Davis Institute reduces Muslim representation to a bunch of checkboxes. I haven't heard of the Geena Davis Institute until very recently, so to add context for you, the Geena Davis Institute on Gender in Media is one of the leading organizations that spearheaded DEI representation in mainstream entertainment. They were founded in 2004 by actress Geena Davis. They claim to conduct research on representation and provide data-driven playbooks and consulting services directly to studios. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Their gaming playbook offers specific guidance for character design using metrics and checklists. In this video, I'm going to go over what I agree with Lady Decade, and also I'm going to talk about where I feel her video falls flat. But for those of you who are eager to start shadowboxing me in the comments section over strawman arguments that I've never made, I got you covered. I'm providing a link below to Precision Striking's virtual pads shadowboxing workout. Make sure you use correct form. The reason why this discussion is important for Muslims and Arabs, because the fact that they like to clump both Muslims and Arabs together, is because this leads to stereotyping and tropes. I'm not going to give you the same buzzwords that other people just like to echo, that representation matters, because that's an empty statement that means absolutely nothing. Why does representation matter? Can you explain? And here's why this topic matters: because it leads to negative representation. Positive representation doesn't really matter too much. It doesn't make too much of a difference if there's positive representation. It's nice to have, but it's not a must-have. On the other hand, negative representation has a large cultural and societal impact. When we see the same constant negative representations of certain demographics, that leads to stereotyping and bigoted thoughts. This is especially true with Muslims and Arabs, because the two get clumped in together as if they're the same thing, and both these demographics are constantly being portrayed negatively. As documented by Dr. Scrutiny in his documentary Real Bad Arabs, there are 4 primary tropes that Arabs and Muslims are portrayed in. There's the bad or evil Arab, who is usually an extremist. There's a shallow or silly Arab, who's silly and not very smart, similar to the Sultan from Aladdin. There's the arrogant Arab, who's oppressive towards women, usually has lots of oil money. And then there's the Bedouin Arab, who lives in a tent out in the desert. This one's the least negative out of the tropes, but it's still one of the tropes that's constantly being used. But other than those 4 tropes that Dr. Scrutiny has pointed out, there's a 5th trope that's more recent. We see this in a lot of media, such as Netflix, and this is the good Arab or the good Muslim. This trope displays that a Muslim can be good if they're not too Muslim. They're allowed to practice their faith, but as long as they're not too strict with it. If they do things that are against their faith, such as drinking alcohol and dating, then that makes them even better. So with these 5 tropes, you get these extremes and nothing ever lands in the middle, which then leads to the promotion of stereotyping. So Lady Decade makes the following points that I agree with. That Western feminists at the Geena Davis Institute see Muslim women as victims that need rescuing and need their help, rather than respecting their religion and culture. Lady Decade also discusses the ideological incompatibility between feminism and Islam. While I do agree with this statement, I also see it as a Trojan horse that these feminists are using Muslim characters intentionally to try to push their ideology onto a conflicting ideology. Lady Decade mentions that the Geena Davis Institute conflates Arabs and Muslims as the same thing. For those of you who aren't aware, Arabs are people from the Middle Eastern nations, while Muslims are people who are practicing Islam. A Muslim does not need to be Arab to practice Islam, and not all Arabs practice Islam. There are 2 different things. There is an overlap between the two. There are Arabs who are Muslim, but it is untrue to push the idea that they are the same thing. One thing I disagree with Lady Decade, though, is her statement about the belly dancers. Lady Decade makes it a point that belly dancing has been conflated or represented as being part of Islamic practices or Islamic culture. Well, what she says about belly dancing not being part of Islam is correct. I don't think I've seen a single character in which it is claimed that a belly dancing character is a Muslim. There might be examples somewhere, but I haven't seen any. In Lady Decade's video, she shows B-roll footage of Shantae, which is a genie character in a fantasy world. While Lady Decade doesn't specifically say this is an example of a belly dancer being confused as a Muslim, it is implied though, because this is the B-roll footage she's constantly using during this segment of her video. Shantae is a genie and she's in a fantasy world. A fantasy world in which Islam probably doesn't exist in. At no point have I ever heard anyone say that Shantae is a Muslim character. So even though I don't disagree with what she says about belly dancing not being part of Islam, and also Arabs and Muslims are 2 different things, I would like for her to come up with some examples of this conflation in which a belly dancing character is conflated as being a Muslim character. And this is one of the major problems I have with her video, is that she doesn't list off examples. She never explicitly says, here is an example of a character that represents this problem. Instead, she just has B-roll footage of different Arab or Muslim characters from video games just constantly cycling through the entire video. Due to the B-roll footage mildly being linked to what she's saying, I feel that most people watching the video will think those are examples of what she's talking about. Someone left me a comment on my live stream. I watched the video separately. Was curious to see your take. I agree she has a show don't tell problem. I would have sent back her essay with a cite primary sources in red at the top. Too many people these days get caught up in expressing their viewpoint like it has intrinsic value that should be clearly evident to all from the outset, without providing a framework of convincing proofs to land the argument. And again, even though I agree with most of what she said, providing examples helps prove the point. I'm a much smaller channel than her. I don't have a lot of time to make these videos, so I don't go around coming up with big lists of examples, and I understand that it takes a lot of time and research to come up with examples, but I try to show at least one example when I'm talking about a specific issue, so it doesn't look like I'm just making the issue up. And that's what hurts the argument, when you state that there are problems without actually showing examples of the problems, such as the whole belly dancing Muslim issue, which I don't feel like I've seen in a video game game before. And I feel like more people need to push this idea that we need to show receipts. It doesn't matter if what the person's saying supports my point. What matters is they also have receipts. They back it up. They make the argument even stronger, not weaker. Going back to the example that I had in the beginning of the video, Halo from Young Justice. My wife and I were ready to start watching Young Justice Season 3. We both liked the previous season, so we're both excited for a new Young Justice. The character Halo started off okay. We didn't have an issue with a brown Muslim girl wearing a hijab, yet wearing a tight suit and fighting supervillains. That wasn't too much of a big deal for us. But once they started pushing the idea that she was all these other checkboxes, it felt more like a slap to the face than anything else. Oh, you want a Muslim character in your superhero show? Sure, you'll get a Muslim character, but she's everything else as well. She's liberal, she dates, she's LGBTQ+, she's everything. And that was just this one character. Don't get me started on the legacy characters like retconning Aqualad to becoming bisexual. Did you need to do that to him? Did you? And there are countless other examples, especially on Netflix, in which there are Muslim characters, they're having conflict with their parents, and if it's a female character, she has a slow motion scene taking her hijab off. They might even break their fast during Ramadan with a shot of liquor. Though I do admit finding these examples in video games is harder due to the fact that there is a lot less of them in video games. It seems that the main examples we'll find in video games are female Arab soldiers in the Middle East. They're clearly tokenized women that only exist for a checkbox because no one playing Call of Duty really wants to play as a masculine, tough Arab woman. And it just comes off as unbelievable. Are we expected to believe that a tiny Arab woman is leading a squad of soldiers? Really? I don't believe it. I don't buy it at all. Doesn't seem believable to me. Also, believable and realistic are two different things. Let's not confuse believable and realistic as the same thing. Those are two different words that mean two different things. So I agree with the majority of what Lady Decade said in her video. I would just like for her to have used some examples throughout her discussion rather than just have random B-roll play through the entire video, especially since these tropes continue to reinforce the stereotypes that many people believe in. But one last thing before I wrap things up. Throughout most of my adulthood, I've always been very heavy and obese. In 2016, I tried getting myself into shape, and then I ended up injuring my back while riding a bike. This back injury led me to limping around and having constant nerve pain going down my leg at all times. I ended up gaining even more weight, and I was extremely inactive during this time. Even after back surgery, I was still in constant pain, and I was the heaviest I've ever been in my entire life. Eventually, I got tired of feeling sad for myself and feeling pathetic, and I turned my life around by becoming active and started eating healthier. I share this story in my book, Level Yourself Up: Motivation, Weight Loss, Fitness. My goal with this book was to help motivate men to become active, strong, and healthy. In this book, I not only share my story, but I also go over tips on eating healthier, and I cover workouts that you can do at home without a gym membership. These are basic workouts that you can do at home today to help you build strength. The Kindle version is currently on sale for 99 cents from now until Friday, October 31st. Unfortunately, I don't have control over adjusting the price of the printed version, but if you pick up either the digital copy or the printed copy, I'd really appreciate it if you also left a review, because reviews are the single most helpful thing that can help drive the algorithm on Amazon. Link will be provided below if you want to check this out. I appreciate that you got this far in the video. Please give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Salam.